morning. Welcome to Viewpoint, a program of personalities, politicians, and perspectives. And we only leave out the politicians today, happily. What's his Jay Leno said, if God wanted us to vote, he'd given us candidates.
Oh, gosh.
But we have a personality.
Good way to start it there, Bill.
We have a great personality this morning and perspectives. And as usual, we'll start with the kudo or two for Viewpoint. I presume, Judith K., that I would be very remiss if we didn't make the first kudo, and a big kudo, to the Bill Overtons and the Norm Newhouses and all those who volunteer at our, what I call, the food pantry. I'm not sure that's good terminology or not, but there's a lot of folks quietly, and it's a big job. For instance, Norm was going to be with us this morning as he's gone out of the town to the city to go get some more grub.
That's right. That's right.
And so, seriously, I think it's appropriate that we big kudos to those folks out there. And if I might, Judith K., I'm going to have a kudo to our governor.
Good.
Last night I went down to the honor flight, welcomed the guys home. No ladies on this trip, by the way. There have been some in the past. And lo and behold, Governor and Mrs. Rauner showed up. That's the second time in a row they've come down to welcome the men home. Mingling with the crowd and talking with them, and very gracious, and posing for pictures with people who asked her pictures, one of whom is well known to me. And which I will show Jim after the program.
Does that surprise you, Jim?
On a serious note, it's nice of the gentleman to take his time out, and Mrs. First Lady was really a very, very gracious person, so kudos to them for taking that extra step to welcome the veterans home. Now, do you have anything you'd like to add, or do we close this program off before we get Mr. Overton on?
Just bring back the tune.
Why don't you introduce our guest in an official way this morning?
Yes,
even though he's a neighbor.
Bless his heart, he's kind of the Lone Ranger today because, as Bill says, Norman had to go down and get food. You know, we see these things on the news day in and day out around the world of people who suffer so. And I think we get so wrapped up in being grateful that we live in this country, and rightly so. But there's hunger here, too. And it's a year-round, forever thing. And you do what needs to be done to alleviate that problem. God love you. And let's kind of start with the fact that Norman, Bill, is going down to Springfield to get some commodities that you get, and kind of walk us through where it all comes from.
Okay. Well, good morning, and thank you for having us on here. I guess Norm isn't here, but we'll talk about him. And
in spirit,
he's here in spirit. And, of course, having us in terms of the food pantry, I appreciate very much the opportunity to talk about the food pantry. I think it is an important part of our community, and
it sure is.
And the food that we get comes from quite a variety of sources. First of all, we have to purchase a lot of the food. People ask me from time to time if we ever have to purchase food. The answer is, we really would probably have to close down if it was just the donations that people drop by. We couldn't take care of all of the customers that we have. So a large amount of the food that we get actually now comes from the food bank in Springfield. You'd mentioned commodities, Judy, but actually the USDA commodities is really just a small part of what we get. Most of it is actually food that is donated, or somehow the the food bank in Springfield, Central Illinois Food Bank in Springfield, acquires large amounts of food, and they have what they a few years ago they were given the Pepsi company on Cook Street down in Springfield. Pepsi built a brand new warehouse, and so the food bank took the opportunity to refurbish it, built enormous freezers in there. They have to be 50, 60 feet square. I mean, you know,
oh boy.
I mean, they're really big, maybe 75 feet. I go in there, and it's 10 below zero when we go in there, so it's something I don't look around
you don't
and
want to loiter in there,
try
do
to
you?
decide how large it is. But so we get an enormous amount of food. In fact, I got a report from them yesterday that during the first, well, to date, which would be about the first 8 months of 2015, we've gotten 169,000 pounds of food from them. That's a lot of food. That's a lot of food. If you kind of extrapolate that out, it would come to somewhere, you know, certainly over 175 or more. It kind of depends on how much more we get in the next 4 months. I mean, it'd be a lot more than 175. Would be like 250,000 probably. But I guess I'm thinking in terms of tons. We are open probably about 13 or 14, 113 or 114 days a year. And so if you look at that amount of food, we're certainly giving out much over 1,000 pounds, probably 1,500, that just comes from the food bank. Then there is food that's donated. There's food that's purchased locally. We actually get food from all three of the, well, actually it's all four of the stores that provide groceries in Lincoln on a regular basis. Some is a small amount is donated. Some we have to purchase. But we purchase so much from the food bank because we get it at 19 cents a pound.
No matter what it is.
Well, no. If it's a USDA commodity, then there's no cost. Typically, it's 19 cents a pound. There are some things that's even less than that we might get at 11 cents a pound. I think that's an important number for us to talk about, because when people ask what we would like, if we would like them to donate food or donate money, it's pretty simple arithmetic that at 19 cents a pound, we can get 5 pounds of food for 95 cents. If you go to a grocery store, you might think, what are you going to buy for 95 cents anymore? It's a sad reality, but, you know, get a can of soup or a can of beans or something like that. And I don't know if you'll get change back. It kind of depends on where you go.
Sure you would.
So money really is very important to us. And because Logan County is a very giving county, we're able to actually purchase that 169,000 pounds so far this year. So it's donations of money are more important than food, and people will tell me that, well, we wanted to help you so that you didn't have to go to the store. Well, the fact is that Norm and I go to the food bank every other Friday morning, so this Friday is our Friday to go, and we will be at the food bank at 8 o'clock this Friday morning down on Cook Street in Springfield, and we'll shop for, we have a 1 hour slot, but they actually give us a 2 hour shopping, and we really move. And we typically buy by the pallet. You know, if we see if I see a pallet of cereal, I take that, and they mark it and set it aside. And so it's not at all unusual for us to get 7, 8, 9, 10 pallets when we're down there.
How do you truck it back to Lincoln?
The food bank delivers it to us.
Oh,
isn't that amazing?
Yeah. So we'll have a truck. It's a little out of the ordinary for us to get one in the afternoon, but at 1 o'clock this afternoon, a truck will come in. I'm not sure how many pallets we'll have, but right now we're in need of meat, and so there's at least 4 pallets of meat for us, and probably some cereal that I got, and other items.
How do you store the meat that will come? I assume it comes frozen, and then you have to keep it until a food bank day here in Lincoln.
Sure. Yeah, we're fortunate enough to have a walk-in freezer. It's not a real large one, but so actually we need to replenish it a couple times a month because we can empty it out that fast. It's about 15 by 15, and so it's, like I say, it's not a real large one, but it takes care of us for a couple of weeks.
Bill,
now,
excuse me, go right ahead, Judith, please.
I just wanted to ask you about your donations of money. There's no big organized outfit that gives money to food banks, I assume. I assume it's private donations.
Well, it's private. There are businesses, of course, that but we don't have grants as such, if that's what you're saying, and there's no governmental sort of donations to us.
That's why it works.
That could well be.
It's as simple as that.
Yeah, right. I mean, the governmental is the USDA commodities, but everybody gets those, and so I mean but
everybody who comes to the food bank gets an allotment of the various commodities. Is that it?
Well, again, the commodities, we refer to what we get from the U.S. Department of Agriculture as a commodity. Other items are products that we have.
Yeah, right. But of the commodities, does everyone who comes through get, like, cheese is one of them, right?
Sometimes we get cheese. Typically we will get whole chickens. We'll get things like canned stew. There are other things that are a little harder for us to get rid of. Things like grapefruit juice, which some people can't take, and other people don't like. And we've gotten a bunch of whole wheat spaghetti. Now you might think, well, that's good, but. First of all, I'd probably need to back up a little bit. But this is a total choice pantry that we have, and so people choose their food, and so a whole lot of food pantries will fill a bag or a box and hand it to the customer. We don't believe in that. When I became president, I changed all that, and so right now we've had for 9 years now a total choice pantry where the customer selects the food, and if they don't like grapefruit juice, they don't get it, or whole wheat spaghetti.
But you explained to us one time the validity of doing it that way. That way you're not wasting the grapefruit juice or the whole wheat spaghetti.
Oh, sure.
Because if they're not going to use it, it's a shame for them to take it home.
Oh, exactly, and studies have found that that's exactly what happens, and it's a shame that all places really can't understand that it is wasted. Purdue University did a lot of seminal research on this, and they still they have a website or sites that they talk about the food pantries, and but what they found is up to 50% of the food is wasted if it's not choice. And so it seemed right away, so I researched it right away, and it was very clear that that's the way you have to go, unless you're really getting waste. And at some places that have it, we've seen it in Springfield, where the people that go there will be handed a bag, and then they'll go out and sit on the church steps and sort out the things they don't want, and maybe somebody's left something that they do want, and so there's a little exchange out there, and they'll think that, well, that people get rid of their stuff they don't want that way, but no, it's still wasted. What if a person isn't getting what they want? It's wasted on them. And
648-5510. 648-5510. Bill Overton, president of the Agoco Food Bank organization, for want of a better description, Bill. I'm not sure I'm actually correct there. A lot of good. There is obviously, if you drive down Logan Street on Food Bank Day, Pantry Day, a lot of cars there. Obviously, there's a lot of need. Now, you mentioned all the facts and the figures. There's a lot of record keeping. Somebody has to be in charge of that record keeping. And who does that, Bill? And how is it done, sir?
Yeah. Well, one of the things I did right away was to computerize it. So actually, our day-to-day records, if somebody's been there, that's taken care of by a person that works the desk. We have several women that work the desk, and they do a great job. There's other records then that we have to that I have to comply with each month. And I have to send in to Springfield, to the Central Illinois Food Bank, and that ends up in the hands of the government, and they do audits.
There lies fallow.
But they do audits on it, and I don't know really what they do with that information. It's not that important to me. But in doing so, I keep track of how many customers, how many people we have. Families, people we have each month. So I have a record of that back, from the time I started in 2006.
How does a family qualify to be a customer or a client, as the case may be?
Well, I tell people that it's not a law office, so there's no clients here, and a lot of people will use that term. But typically a customer is somebody that goes into a grocery store, and that's what we have is a little grocery store. I don't really want to have people think that they're any more than they really are elsewhere. Sure. Everybody has to be a resident of Logan County, so we serve all of Logan County, and then after that, we ask them what their gross monthly income is, and to see if they're within that. And so I have that information that I can share. I think it's something that would surprise a lot of people. The guidelines are 185% of the poverty level, which, if you knew what the poverty level is, you could figure that out. But for example, one person, the gross monthly income is $1,815. That, whether that sounds like a lot or not a lot, the fact is, if you would think of people, for example, senior citizen that is on Social Security, chances are they're not getting $1,815 a month. So there's really a lot of people there, in that way.
There's a huge need, isn't there?
Well, there would certainly, that would cover a lot of people. So, and that number goes up, and so it's really pretty interesting just how high that number is. Like for a family of a large family of let's say 5 or 6, that amounts to $5,000 a month. So $5,021 a month would qualify a person, that amount or less would qualify you to come to the food pantry. Well, there's a lot of families of 5 people that aren't making anywhere near that. So, of course, I do say that we don't try to hide that information. Otherwise, I wouldn't say it over the radio. But the fact is that if everybody knew that, I'm afraid our line would go not just to the parking lot, but way down the street.
Longer, huh?
Yes.
Approximately how many families do you think you average per month?
Well, I can tell you, how many we've averaged over the years. I can tell you how many we had in August, or this is August, in July, I'm sorry. We had 605 families come in.
Boy, that's a lot.
And in those 605 families, there was 2,225 people. So in a county of 30,000, that's a pretty good percentage.
Yes, it is.
When you think about it.
Yes, it
is. It's difficult for me to express this, but it's still a fact. You've got a lot of folks that you're serving, and yet you'll see them standing outside smoking. And smoking is very expensive, and it's kind of
it is.
It's difficult for me to to construct that in my mind is if they can afford that, why are they taking from the food pantry? And that I don't know. It's just a difficult thing for me to process.
It is for most people. I really try to make sure that our volunteers don't dwell on that. That they really dwell on those who are in need and all of that. I tell them, I have really enough trouble taking care of Bill Overton. I'm not going to worry about that guy out there smoking. So she has enough trouble taking care of him too. But I think my point is that you can dwell on that, and a lot of people do, and a lot of people, I think, unfairly rationalize why they don't give to the food pantry because they see all these big cars out in the parking lot. We had a donor that a couple of weeks ago that came up in a Mercedes but there was and brought a truckload of food, so there was a truck there and this Mercedes in the parking lot. I said to the lady, I said, "Is that your car?" And she said, "Yeah." I said, "I hope you get that out of here."
Oh, God.
Park it over the tree.
Yeah, park it someplace.
But lest we rush to judgment, if you
that's
do
why
see
I brought that subject up, Judith.
Yeah.
Well, I think that people...
If you see a big car out there, you don't know but what the person bought that car because they had a good job, and then they got downsized and just cut off at the knees. Well, you've still got your car.
Sure. Yeah, it could be somebody that lives nearby, or a relative, or someone that is bringing them. Because very often you'll talk to people that their car doesn't crank, and so actually what they want is for us to deliver the food to them, and that's something that's really pretty difficult to do. I'd love to be able to do that, but I know I'd be opening the Pandora's box. That everybody would. I had one old guy that would call me every month, and he'd say, "Bill, it's a little chilly out. Could you bring me my food today?"
On that, we're going to chill out for just a minute. And this is a commercial station. We have to have sponsors, as you might remember, Bill.
Right.
So we'll take a couple of minutes for our sponsors, and then come right back to Bill Overton to talking about the Logan County Food Pantry. And we're right back live in the studios at WLCN, right up here on Lazy Row. Our guest this morning is Mr. William Overton, and Bill is one of the very, very vitally needed volunteers at our Logan County Food Pantry. Speaking of volunteers, Bill, there again, nothing happens without the volunteers stepping up and swinging the bat. How is your staff of volunteers, and do you need volunteers or somebody to be standing in the wing to be called in?
Yeah, we have a good staff of volunteers. There's always a need for one or two. They're very dedicated. Yeah, we could always use one or two more. It's not a big need that we have because those that we have are good, and good people show up for work. And but our total numbers, we probably have around 50-some volunteers that show up at varying, some on both Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then some just once a month. And so it all works out very well for us. They're a good bunch. Nobody is paid at the food pantry, so really, all donations, you can count on the fact that all donations are really going to go for food. We do have to pay for the utilities and a few things like that.
Those are not cheap.
They're not cheap, and with freezers and refrigerators, the electric bill has to be paid. But I point out that's not a large amount of our need.
And that's it.
That's it. Yeah, I mean, the Methodist Church gives us the building, and so that's, we don't have to worry. I have that worry.
And thank you to them.
Yeah.
The scheduling. What days is your grocery store open, sir?
We're open Tuesday mornings from 9 to 11, and Thursday afternoon from 2 to 4. And then we're open on the second Wednesday of each month from 2 to 4 in the afternoon for seniors and people with disability. we like to give extra help on that day, so we will really, our little store, as you'd say, people take a grocery cart around the room and select food, and then they and go on out to the parking lot. On that second Wednesday of each month, we give extra help to people, especially, I mean, if they're seniors and people with disability. Others do come in, and we don't turn them away, of course, but we give extra help on that day for people that need it.
Now, a lot of the churches, when they pass the plate and take the collection up the altar, they also take a food basket up there that the church members leave. Is that kind of universal, pretty common in our churches in this community?
Yeah, I can't tell you just how many churches, but really the churches in towns throughout the county. So we're talking about Atlanta, Mount Pulaski, Broadwell, New Holland, Hartsburg, Emden. They all have churches that I mean, some would amaze you, the amount of money that some of them give us. It's really very, very good.
Our church especially collects like personal hygiene items or bathroom tissue or Kleenex, body wash, deodorant, toothpaste. Each month it's a different thing.
Yeah.
Now, is that something you can't get through the food bank?
Actually, we can get that through the food bank, and I, you know, some people would criticize what I did, but I got 3 pallets of diapers, and that's a lot of diapers, by the way.
That's a lot of money.
Well, at 19 cents a pound, yeah, I mean, the savings for moms.
I mean, if you were going to go out and buy, I have to buy them for my great-grandson.
Yeah, the savings for moms is got to be incredible. So, yeah, they're all Pampers and Huggies, I guess. So there's a few Huggies in there, but so they're all name brand. There's small sizes that you know that moms can use. So and besides that, there's we get a whole lot of personal care products. We're starting to do that. I know that some would say this is a food pantry. Why are you doing that? And my comeback is that they need.
Well, it's a basic need.
You still have to wash dishes.
Yeah. So, I think it's important that we continue to have this, especially since we can get all of that at 19 cents a pound.
Right.
Has there been any excuse me, my grammar there, Judith, have there been any unusual incidents or episodes that you could recount on the air that have come to mind?
No, I think everybody knows that there was one unfortunate where we had a break-in a couple of years ago, but that's I think we've been very fortunate that hasn't happened on a regular or it hasn't happened more often. There have been just really very few things go kind of the same day after day, So.
Well, because you've got a system set up, and that's what counts, is having a system.
The system too is that I haven't talked about is when I mentioned that we're a total choice pantry. People think then people can come in and take as much of something as they want, and they can't. As you go around the room, there would be the first thing that you come to is meat. And there's frozen meat that we keep in a freezer, and based on the size of the family, they can select so many packages of meat, and they have to make the selection. They would go on to the next item, which is a glass case, like you'd see in a grocery store, which might have dairy products and cold meat and that sort of thing in it. And again, based on the size of the family, and as they go around the room, the next items after that are canned vegetables. Then they would go on to things like pasta, mac and cheese, continuing on to soup, canned fruit, cereal, and on around the room, bread, and baked items, other baked items.
Are they on their honor then to take the allotted amount of meat or the allotted amount of eggs or what have you?
Well, there's always a volunteer there, and so at each one of those stations, so to speak, there's a volunteer that can help them and say, the customers will have a little slip that'll say how many items, not items, how many people are in the family. So that based on that, if there's 5 in the family, then the volunteer can tell them that then there's so many items that you can select. Although those are posted all around the room, so at every place, so people know.
Boy, you've got that tuned up like nobody's business.
Well, that's what his expertise is. That's why he did such a good job. He's one of the few that really stepped up to the plate when he was a state employee. He gave us our money's worth.
Yeah.
Bill, am I correct? Did you make some remodeling so that the people wouldn't have to be out in the cold?
Yes, we did.
And that was important, didn't it?
It was very important. That was, 3 or 4 years ago that I had... and I'm sure I've told you this, there was a young mom standing outside. It was 10 degrees out, and she had just a T-shirt, and her baby was dressed about the same. And we can only get so many people into the work area, and then otherwise we just can't move. So we would fill up that area, but she was still out there. So I'd gotten an RFP, a referral from Eaton Corporation for a grant, and so I submitted a grant to them, and they purchased the waiting room that we have. There's an unloading dock area too, so that's all part of it. It was very nice. They gave us $30,000 to build that.
You know, there again, Eaton steps up.
Once again.
They just do, once again. They're a corporation in this community that puts a lot back on our community. They really do. But you see that young lady standing out there, youngster, those of us who are more lucky don't have any cognizance at all that there is a lot of real true need out there. And you're serving a wonderful replacement for that need. You know,
when you see, when I hear people talking about the cars that might be in the parking lot, and all of that, and all they have to do is meet a few young ladies like that.
Anybody who would have seen that,
would the old saying,
crushed.
There, but for the grace of God, that type of thing.
Yeah.
You mentioned that she had a little baby.
Yeah.
Now, do you have like formula?
We get it donated sometimes, and formula is very expensive.
Yes,
as you know.
it is.
It's really so. I don't try to keep that on hand, but sometimes it's donated, and sometimes I can get it at the food bank. And if so, then I snatch up whatever I can. Mm-hmm. One of the things that we have to be very careful about is our standards would say that. For example, this is the 25th of the month of August. Mm-hmm. The expiration date for baby food would then be September 25th, so it's a month in advance.
Uh-huh.
And so if we get surveyed and we'd see some food that was, let's say less than a month ahead, then that would be a deficiency for us. By the way, we don't get deficiencies. We've been surveyed twice recently, and the only thing that I couldn't answer is the surveyor, Norm wasn't there, and they wanted to know what Norm's middle initial was, and I said,
well, that's a big deal.
That's
a
important.
big deal.
Golly, you gotta be kidding.
I couldn't answer that. I had an idea what it was, but I thought,
from whence cometh these surveyors that need Norman Newhouse's middle initial?
This was a federal surveyor, so.
Don't let that surprise you at all. When we're all of us, I'm certain, when we make our tours in the respective grocery stores in the community, we all know that at some point they have to bring in fresh and move what appears to be fresh stuff somewhere.
Yeah.
And so they have to get rid of it. And I do not know the legalities of that or how that works. Does the food bank get some of those things that the grocery stores have to move out?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we do. And so Norm and I just really have to be very careful that we don't get something that's badly outdated or cans that are badly dented and all that. Because,
sure.
But we do have a section that I call our scratch and dent section, which is that we will have things that might be a month or two past the date. And that's within guidelines, as a matter of fact. So we, some of the guidelines are so, they're kind of outrageous, and well, I mean, for example, pasta is good for 2 years after you get it. Well, I'm not sure where it's been before we get it. You know? So no, and so we just, I say, we really can't go by those sorts of guidelines. I don't like ranges. I want definite numbers, and if it's 3 to 4 months, that the guideline might say, I don't deal well with that. So we have a section that we will put. It's called an extra. You can take it if you like, and it's on. There's some shelving there that has a number of items, and it's not all out of date. There's some things that are just like single items, like what do you do with a can of artichokes that somebody well, we don't have a bunch of artichokes, so here's, so we put that on the shelf too,
Now there again, Judith and James, it takes volunteers. You get somebody, those things just don't appear on the shelves. Somebody that got to handle them, physically handle them, and so forth. So there's a lot of hands-on. Now, what about the simple commodity of bread? I don't know where the stores have to get rid of bread at such and such a time.
Well, we get bread 7 days a week. Well, actually 6 days a week from Kroger, and that's not out of date. I mean, it's typically there's still a couple of days left on it. For example, it might bread that we would get today might have the 27th or 28th on it. So then I get each Tuesday morning I get 6 trays of bread, which would be 60 loaves from IGA, which is just off their shelf. I mean, the truck brings it in for us. So typically all of the baked goods are with, there's plenty of date left on them.
Well, there's so much preservative in things anymore. Heck, I've had bread in my bread drawer that's, because the dog and I don't really eat that much bread.
I noticed that was green.
Well, before it gets green, a couple weeks can pass,
Yeah. Here's what happens in a case like that. When does it turn green? And I don't want us to try and guess stuff. So let's get as good a product as we can out there. There are people that'll point at me and point their finger into my chest and tell me that if I'd grown up in the Depression like they did, that I'd eat that green bread. And I said, I didn't, and I'm not going to anyway. And so we're going to have fresh products for people.
The audacity of anyone pointing their finger in your chest.
If you're going to err at all, err on the old saying about err on the side of good judgment. The scheduling, who pays for the cost of going to Springfield and or Bloomington to get these groceries?
Well,
that's expensive.
The groceries are shipped to us now. Since when the price of fuel went up, we are charged $25 for a truck to come up, which that's not much.
No. You can hardly drive back and forth for that.
No, but Norm and I mean, it's at our own cost when we drive down every other Friday. It's and there's other times in between. We don't have a charge account. We don't have a credit card for gas. I mean, we have a credit card for making purchases, a debit card. But no, we don't charge for that.
Do you have weekly, or not? Do you have regular meetings of your staff and so forth?
We have, before we meet, we get in a circle. It's a prayer circle, we call it. We talk about any needs. We talk about any prayer needs. And so, that's an opportunity then for Norm and me to provide information to to our staff of what's changed. Other than that, there is a manual each year that we get at an annual conference that's that gives us our guidelines, and those guidelines we make copies, and our volunteers can pick it up. There's a stack of them there for them to read. And by the way, we end every prayer circle with the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we get to work.
Good for you.
You know, a flag was donated to us, and it was really in bad shape, and so I took it out to the Legion, and I asked them to take care of the flag, and if they would please give us a new one. And so I hung that up, and so I started that practice right away. You know.
Thank you for that.
Well, you know what? That's what we need to do.
That's right.
Exactly right. Our guest this morning has been Bill Overton, one of the many folks in Logan County who step to the plate and pick up a bat and swing it when a need is there. Bill said early on in the program, Logan County is truly a caring and giving community when needs arise, and this is certainly an outstanding example of that. We always try to close, Bill, with this quote that somewhat analogous or does something about the program. So, and this is something to think about here. Hungry people cannot be good at learning or producing anything except perhaps violence.
Yeah.
Point to be made. Thank you, Bill Overton.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.